Yeah, I mean the impact has been really tremendous because, as we all know, it caught all of us by surprise. We were not prepared for it. So the first thing that that happened is the isolation. You don't have to connect with people that you used to connect before. You have to work from home, which many of us were not familiar with, working from home. You have to conduct work on the phones or Zoom or Microsoft Team or any other sort of social media or avenues. So and confined with kids in the house, and you can't go anywhere. And you have to wear masks when you go out. It
Yeah.
just and a lot of scary news that you hear all the time about it.
Mm.
Just not knowing much about this disease or virus has been really tremendous. So yeah, I guess being a counselor myself, we just help other people, and sometimes that help you to forget more about it because you have to preach what you have to practice what you preach. So what we say to our client to cope better is what we try to put in practice to make sure that we look after ourselves. We came from collectivist cultures, and I did mention in some of my publication where people kind of help each other in group setting. And so when the coronavirus came in, and based on what I'm hearing from community members, is that the most devastating part of it is being unable to be visited by friends or family members, unable to visit them. There are no communal activities like parties or other things that used to bring people together. And these were very important in terms of coping with other issues, whether to do with settlements or resettlement issues, and especially for those who have language barriers, lack of understanding service provision, cultural barriers, and the older generation in particular are the ones that are impacted a lot more in that regard because they don't have that social connection. They are not onto the technology as young people are. So there has been tremendous isolation because when you don't have educational background, in particular, because as you know, a lot of older generation in this community were deprived by the war, so they didn't go to school. So the older generation really have been very isolated, but they try to connect using phone, but they cannot see each other as they used to do, as we are doing right now, and many in many other platforms. So that has been really a challenge. The other thing also is about people lost jobs, and majority of some of the those who were doing some kind of job like whether within care, personal care, or NDIS and other kind of work. This job came to they crumble, and a lot of these don't have enough income at the moment. So it's another level of struggle that people are going through. Plus that isolation, we don't know what the mental health side of it will be translated into. Mental health wasn't something that it is connected with so many bad connotations, so many connotations that are attached to it, and because it was seen as sometime at some point as a curse or somebody is crazy, and lack of understanding, as I mentioned, about lack of understanding service provision, because most of the time, the way I try to help people understand it is that when we are stressed or have issues, thinking a lot about things or having nightmares, especially for those who have trauma, it's just like any other sickness we have in our body. Because when we are sick physically, we go to the doctor and we don't feel shy to go there. But with mental health related sort of issues, people kind of shy away because the stigma is quite huge, especially for those who are not fully aware of, because because the environment they were brought up in, mental health didn't exist, and also counselors or psychologists, psychiatrists don't exist. So you normally go to community leader or community elder to go and get some advice and encouragement. That goes to what you asked earlier about being from collectivist cultures. So a lot of this, when people are, in a communal place, they can support one another and they can overcome some of these challenges that they don't want to go to a particular counselor or psychologist to talk about. So there are a lot of issues around reaching out because you feel like, especially men, you feel like it's something that it being weak if you reach out, and we know that is also in the mainstream Australian cultures with men. People put up with it. If I do this, maybe people think that I'm weak, and. So the same thing apply in this community, especially lack of understanding it and feeling that I'm going to be judged if I do so. And because people will be curious, why are you seeing a psychologist? What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
and because people that don't have background or training can judge sometimes, subconsciously, unconsciously, and they can just say, why don't you just get over it, and they simplified what it is, and that they make it worse because it's really hard for people to cope. So I guess the way to explain it is to, when I talk of mental health, we don't use word mental health directly. We say well-being, because well-being is inclusive, and because the word mental health, even word mental health, it's okay, which is different from mental illness.
Yeah. Yeah.
But people don't understand. They just, any word mental, just word mental alone is associated with a lot of stigma. So you have to kind of generalize it in a different way, that well-being, so that people can feel comfortable with, and explaining that it does help when you talk to somebody about it. You actually help yourself by externalizing this feeling and normalize them, and you might find solution when you become self-aware of them. We internalize a lot of stuff, and we are not open kind of people to talk about them because of some sort of barriers that are preventing people from talking about them. They actually internalize them, whereby those who seek help or talk about them can find solution or can normalize this. But those who have language barrier, lack of understanding, service provision, and so many other things, can lead into internalizing all these issues. Even those who are aware, as I mentioned, the example of some men that struggle because they don't want to be seen as weak, because I also do counseling in the mainstream as well.
Yeah.
So most of the time, it's when we talk of domestic violence or child abuse or other things, these issues can happen because of so many external factors, things that are pressuring that family, and it just kind of like balloon being pumped up, and it's just it's reaching the capacity where it will explode if you don't stop pumping it. So the same thing with human. If you are not able to externalize some of these feelings or find solution to them, they can come out in a wrong way. For example, with young people, sometimes go through a lot of issues, and whether from home or what is happening at schools, and all this, pressure coming from different direction can pressure them, and because they are too young to understand, they internalize all of this, and they come out in a bad way by doing something stupid because they feel like, what to lose, and sometimes some even want to be in prison, which is really bad. If you look at it, it's just a manifestation of mental health or mental illness, because those kind of people are not seeing the future. What I wrote about a lot, and in my thesis as well, and that is where, this is what we call acculturation. It's when the culture that you come with the new culture meet. There is a bit of friction if it is not handled properly, because within acculturation there are different layers, and some of these, one of them is the best out of the four type of acculturation or acculturation orientation. Integration is the most important part of really helping the newcomers into the new environment to be able to integrate into their new culture or host culture perfectly. What it means is they take a bit from the culture they come with that is compatible with their new environment. For example, some of the values like South Sudanese, the respect is something very, very important. When you look at young person like myself, I might be as educated as I am, but if I meet an older person based on our culture, I would refer to them as uncles, aunties, and again that goes into so many things. If you come here, I'm sitting on the chair, I have to give you that chair to come and sit, and I have to stand because you are older than me. So all of these values are some of the things that they can hold on to. And then also from the new environment, they have to take from the new environment as well, so that you create some sort of hybrid to do well in your new environment. And part of it is, getting involved in everything else so that you can get a job and so many other things. But there is another part of acculturation that is very unhelpful, that is assimilation. Some young people sometimes would choose to assimilate to the dominant culture, and they forget about everything about the old culture, the thing that is really bad. We don't want to know about it. But then they actually end up coming back crashing, because when they assimilate, they end up, finding themselves, they're not fully assimilate to that culture, whether because of looking different or because of something else that end up upsetting them, or somebody might have just said something very simple. Where are you from? And he might say, I'm from Werribee. No, where are you from? Yeah. And that can prompt them to think, oh, where am I from? And then plus so many other, discrimination or racism that will factor in. Assimilation that way, at that level, wouldn't work, because what happened with those kind of young people, they will not be part of the main culture. They will not be part of the original culture. They fall in the crack. And they create their own identity, and that is where it would be translated into juvenile behaviors or antisocial behaviors, or even gang, because they couldn't find anything from there and there, so they have to find their own way in the middle. And that goes into separation as well. Those who choose to not integrate into their new culture, it doesn't help them. And those who marginalize are those who are severely and mentally unwell, because they decide, I don't want to know anything about my original culture. I don't want to know anything about the new culture. I have to stay in my house. There is a serious mental health issue. Even if they might not have, they will have in the long run. being confined into a small space, into a house, without going out. And you know that when we are young, we have a lot of energy and also wanting to connect. And part of what happened with the intergenerational gap between, especially for the newly arrived or new refugees or migrants, is that is like, I'm going to come to what you asked, but the other part that I didn't mention earlier is when they come to a new culture, children learn a new language quite quickly and understand the new system faster than their parent. As you know, the older we are, the harder it becomes for us to learn a new language and learn, new trick. But young people can just within 6 months can learn the language and everything else and assimilate. So this could create some power reversal within the family because they become powerful. They know the language, they know their right, and parents would feel disempowered. And most of the time, their children are actually the one that are translating, interpreting for them, and doing so many other things. The friction will continue to widen as their children try to be like any other Australian, When it comes to COVID-19 being confined in their houses, there has been a lot of stories of concern of young people breaking the COVID-19 law or rule and go out. And there has been a lot of fine issue against young people. And parents were really worried about, especially some parents that are quite vulnerable. They think that their children will go and bring COVID-19 to them. Okay. So there has been tremendous concern. But these young people, because as I said, when they are teenagers, it's a testing time, as we all know it. And they want to push the boundaries to go out and do other things. But at the same time, you are under restriction. So there are a lot of issues at the moment and friction within the family. Young people bringing a lot of fine home and they don't even have job to pay those fines. So it just, there are a lot. The mess COVID-19 has left behind will take time to clean up. One of them now, people are, in Victoria here, the fact that the restriction has been eased gradually and slowly, which has been really good. And, the mass now being reduced down to only if you are within the crowd has been really great, has been a welcome news. But there remain confusion for some uncertainty because of whether this COVID-19 will ever come back again to be the same way we were shut down before. The fact that people have lived in isolation for a very long time, and we know that when you live alone for a very long time, you get used to it. And when you go into a crowd, anxiety will kick in. And this is where other issues like depression and likelihood of mental health will kick in. So to get used to this again might take time for some, not all, but might take time for some, as you said. Not only South Sudanese, but it's everybody else that is impacted by. A lot of people lost job, but not only that, majority of them already were struggling to get job. Okay. And with this COVID-19, those who lost their job, it's really hard to get those jobs back, but it's also hard for those who were looking for job. And when you look at this community like South Sudanese, as we're using it as an example, it has a very high level of young people that are highly educated, but they don't have job. For some reason, as you know, there are a lot of things that are in the system that are potential barriers to getting those kind of jobs. So unemployment And most of the time that goes into family issues, as you mentioned earlier, whether domestic violence and other things, because when people don't feel like they are contributing in the family, for example, men, they feel disempowered, and that sort of feeling would lead to some sort of behaviors that are undesirable in that sense. So unemployment is the major thing, and then mental health part of it. Something that people are not talking about a lot because because of the stigma attached to it. But mental health or depression that will come with it will be tremendous as well, whether to do with the anxiety of getting back to the crowd, anxiety of not having job, anxiety of so many other things that are, and also anxiety of whether the COVID-19 will ever come back again. Do I really need to be in the crowd? Some people that are struggling already would withdraw from going into crowd. So there are so many other things, that are contributing factors to what would happen after this. We sometimes dwell a lot more on anything negative, even if 90% is positive. The negative side of it is what we want to see because we want to solve that problem.
Yeah.
Therefore, we put a lot of focus on that because the positive side of it, part of it is what we put behind us. It's done, done deal. So there has been a lot of positive. The community has been supporting each other quite a lot, especially those who were locked down during COVID-19. Some community members volunteered to go and do shopping for them. Follow up, make a phone call. Like there are some organization based, like for example, Sud Foundation, has established a network of volunteers and helped the community members across Victoria. So food was being delivered to this family, and a phone call always to check how they're doing, and also messages, because as I mentioned about language barrier. Some don't speak English, and especially there were some parents or grandparents of whom their children or their grandchildren left home, and they are left alone. As you know, it's the culture here. When you grow up and you are 18, you have right to move on, which is not in South Sudanese culture. You move on only if you are married, and because this vulnerable population that are older and they don't have education background because they were so deprived or they are quite vulnerable in different ways. They were really struggling because they don't understand what it is being said on TV or whatever it is. Okay. So community members have to take it into their own hand and support these people, whether giving them key messages or explaining things or how to protect themselves, how to encourage them to go and get tested, and the importance of all of this. All of this has been really powerful. So at the moment, the technology, I think technology came at the right time because if we didn't have this technology, I don't know how it would have been possible to support one another, because that is the only way that people were able to check on each other. And most of the time, people feel happy, and some of us has run some session on family well-being. I do parenting on the phone and also online on this sort of platform to help parents cope with parenting children during COVID-19, because this is where a lot of pressure is being put on these families of parents because of the children not being allowed to go out a lot more, or, going to the park wasn't there before. But as a positive thing, I think people learn from it to be able to use technology better. Those who are reluctant to use it, they are able to use it now. So, the technology that, like, for example, people are using WhatsApp, Facebook, and all of this, and they are actually quite connected in those platforms, especially those who are able to read and write. But also people are quite eager to come out when this lockdown is all lifted and coronavirus is gone. They are quite eager to come together. They have developed some ideas on some of the things that they want to do because, I think people are not as complicit as it used to be. So, just sometime when you are confined into your little space, it gives you the opportunity to reflect on so many things and come up with some ideas. So there are some good ideas coming where people are going to be able to connect more after the COVID. It is a universal problem, and when you look at it, Australia is better, than in comparison to U.S. and other countries that are going through tremendous loss of life and number of people that are caught by COVID-19. I guess we are lucky on this side not to have so many cases.
Yeah, absolutely.
So trying most of the time to look at your situation and look at the situation of others, that would help you to say, well, actually, I'm better off in comparison. That is part of trying to normalize that, first of all. Is to make sure that it doesn't isolate you. You need to remain connected as much as possible. And this idea that if I ask for help or if I talk about my problem or concern that I have to somebody might be seen as weakness. I always say that it's not weakness, actually. It's a strength because those who ask for help or those who want to know about something are those who have strength. So we want to encourage the culture of asking for help or ask questions about the thing that you don't know or you want to know about. There are people who knows other services, other support that are available. The problem the community have, as I mentioned, potential barriers are, for some, language barrier, cultural barriers, lack of understanding service provision, not knowing where to go and seek help. But if people are able to contact people they know, because, in a small community, the advantage of it, people know each other. Somebody knows somebody. And that the chain can, people can connect quite easily to getting some kind of support. Other support, know other services out there might not be appropriate sometimes, but that is where you need somebody who knows about services to be able to help. And what we found in the community, a lot of people like myself and others, we genuinely want to help because of a lot of issues that are impacting the community. We see them as all of us because when it comes to the media, as you know it impacts on all of us.
Yeah.
So we took it upon ourselves that we have to help to solve some of the social issues, especially to do with young people issues and family issues, and that's why I do a lot of family and parenting to help family and community members to be able to, the parenting that I do is really, I always tell them that it's not about replacing your, parenting practices. It's about enriching that. It's about creating some sort of balance, again, that goes into the integration that I was talking about, so that people are able to understand what the law said, what is child right, and what are the strategies. Because back home, the disciplining of children was quite different from the way it is here. It might be similar in different ways, but it is quite different. So I want them to create some sort of balance or equilibrium so that they are able to communicate better with their children and have different strategies of disciplining. if we don't know about our new comers or newly emerging community, we wouldn't know what are their issues because sometimes we know that majority of us, we rely on the media. And even that apply to South Sudanese and many other emerging community. There are a lot of, there are some people that are very judgmental to where these young people, they feel very upset with them because of what they are doing. And sometimes they may be because they don't even have connection in the community, but what they are hearing is on the media only. So they see what these young people are doing is really bad, which is, of course, some young, what they are doing is not good, but they don't have a background knowledge of what are the issues, why are they behaving this way. So sitting back a bit and understand and ask some hard questions. What is happening at home? What is happening at the school? What is happening in terms of in the system? Where are we failing here to help these young people? How can we help them better? What can we do to change this dynamic? Those kind of questions can help. So when it comes to understanding culture, it's two ways. It's for the newly arrived to be able to learn about the new environment and culture so that they can integrate into it as I talk of integration. It's also about the new host culture to be able to embrace and welcome these people, make them feel part of, make them belong. Because sometimes when you feel othered, when you feel like you don't belong to that part of the environment, especially for young people, it actually manifests itself in a very bad way, bad behaviors, and because they feel rejected and they don't care. And so these are the things that can lead to, and it's not a justification, but these are the reality of human nature. When people feel like they don't belong, there are so many things that happen because they don't see anything positive, and that's why you see sometimes there are a lot of bad things that are happening, where the people taking their own life and what have you, which is unfortunate. So we need to look into understanding both ways, and that is some of the things that I'm doing in my program. What I'm doing is to create that balance. You are here in this environment. You are not back home. You are here. So all you need to do, carry with you the good part of your culture and take from the new environment, combine them. Absolutely. When you combine them, you actually do better. And part of combining them, actually, you participate in everything, like anybody else in the new environment. And all you need to be able to do all of this, you need somebody to support you, to be able to feel at home. So I remember, because I was from New Zealand, I went to New Zealand in early 2000. There used to be some, people assigned with the newly arrived to support them, take them around, show them around, and this become part of those families. They remain close forever. So this is part of really helping people integrate into their new culture. But if you find people just wandering, finding their way out of the system, the service providers are not always there. They're not going to be there all the time. But if there are community members who can work with these newly arrived and help them settle in, that can make a difference. Most of my training as well, what I do I look at identifying issues. For example, starting with family. There are some things that family can do within the household, whether communicating with children, because some parent might have come from a very authoritarian parenting background where you're young, you know nothing, listen, take it from me, you're going to be all right. Actually, this is done with good intention.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work like that in this environment or in this modern age. So you need to change your tune, how you talk to young people like that, and involve them. Use some sort of authoritative parenting style. So and communicating with them better. This is something that family parent can do at their level. There are some things that the community can do at their level. Having communal place where people can come and share, experience ideas and bring people from the mainstream community to come and interact with you. Let them know about your culture. Let them know about food. Like South Sudanese have some wonderful food, but not many Australians know about them. They have wonderful cultural dance and so many other things. All of this, very few know about them.
Yeah.
And then it goes to the next level where service providers can help, and then government will come last. So there are 4 levels where these issues can be tackled. I used to do some presentation to Victoria Police about cultures and how to engage with this community. And one time, one policeman asked me, "Is being rude part of your culture?" And I said, "No, it's actually being polite is what is part of our culture." The reason why I asked this question, because he never interacted with any South Sudanese in ordinary time. He always interact with young people that are maybe violent or in domestic violence situation. So, you can see, and this is because this is his experience. Of course, I wouldn't judge him for that. I wouldn't say that he's ignorant, because that is what he has been meeting.
Yep.
So one policeman came out and said, "I guess the thing we have is because we only meet with your community members when there is a problem. Actually, we need to have some barbecue together. We need to come and attend some event together so that we got to know your community members and even the youth and all of this." South Sudanese are very hospitable. Those who have come across some of the things or parties or whatever that they are organized, if you come as a guest, the way you will be treated, you will go away surprised, contrary to what you might have seen somewhere being said, or because they say always that one rotten onion can rotten the whole sex of onions. So the same thing apply, and we know that in every community there are good and bad, and if we look at addressing the root causes of these social issues, we can find solution to that. And what you suggested or what you say, starting with me to get to know about these particular people, because as human being, the best of me, you can know the best of me when you make me feel like I belong, or when you are interested in understanding who I am and what is good about me. As I mentioned earlier, part of trying to externalize what we are going through, or what we have gone through, and part of trying to normalize it is very important, because what keeps us going as human is when we are optimistic. Contrary to being pessimistic, because sometimes we don't know what tomorrow brings, but if we are hopeful, tomorrow will be good, then it's us who make that. It's like when people are given, new medicine is being trialed. There are people that are given placebo and the real medicine, but because our brain is kind of altered to believe that actually I'm getting an actual treatment, so you actually feel okay. You actually feel you recover, but because our mind and body are connected. So psychological and emotionally, we need to find ways on how to communicate all of this without in your own houses and thinking about them all the time. Communicate with others. Talk to somebody that you trust. Talk to some influential community members. Ask for help. even if you don't, even if you may not ask directly for help, you can say, you know, where can I get this support, or where, because I know somebody in the community that might need help. If you think that you're going to be judged individually, you can just say somebody is struggling, and what sort of help is available out there. And some of us, you know there are some services out there that we can connect people to. It is important to reach out. We need to change the culture of not reaching out. We need to change the culture of thinking that if I ask for help, then I will be considered weak, or people would think that I have mental health issues. Actually, those who ask for help are those who have strength. So the strength that you have when you ask for help, you're going to be able to help somebody else because you have that knowledge. And you will have that experience of seeking help. And again, it comes down to people that are helping other people in the community sometimes. They shouldn't look at themselves that as if they are superhuman. When you're helping somebody, you are exposed and you become vulnerable as well. And that's what a lot of people are doing in our community. They are helping a lot. And those who are helping need a bit of support, a bit of empowerment to be able to help other people in the community as well. So they need to come out. There are a lot of services, as you mentioned earlier, just that lack of collaboration and coordination and not knowing what some service deliver is a problem. The government, on the other hand, has been very helpful in some areas, which is really good. I mean, in a sense, we are lucky to be able to get this support to the community, and we know that more support are always out there. But the only problem is the disparity here in those who don't know where to access that help, those who don't know how to ask for help, will always struggle because they don't know the help that is out there. And especially those community, when the community is not well organized, they wouldn't get any support as well, but there is support out there. So unity and supporting one another, checking on each other is very important. The work that I do it under African Australian Family and Parenting Support Service. Mainly do consultation and counseling and family well-being, which is parenting. I used to call it positive parenting, but the word positive parenting sounds very strong, so I changed it to just family well-being. So I'm running few of them at the moment with other service providers as well. But I also volunteer. I work with Foundation House as well as a counselor, so people can get support. And you know, as from the community, we understand the culture. There are so many ways that people can be supported. It's not only counseling. Counselors are called counselor advocates, and they can help provide counseling support for people. When it comes to other support during COVID-19, there has been a South Sudanese organization called Sud Foundation. Sud Foundation the word Sud comes from a swampy area in South Sudan. That is the name given to that area. And Sud Foundation has been really helping community members, especially those who are affected by COVID-19, whether directly or indirectly, by distributing food after they were given a bit of funding by the government department, and distribute food, which, it was, the feedback was tremendous. People were very appreciative for the support. So this is one of the organizations that can help. It's still growing. It's a new organization, but it can be a point. And as I said, there are individuals within the community who knows about other service. There are individual leaders There are practitioners like myself, so people can reach us in different way. Or if they don't know, they can ask somebody, and somebody might know somebody. As I said, that is the advantage of a small community.